This week I'm talking about writing books for teenagers because one of the courses that
Such a tricky age.
no, well, one of the courses I actually teach at the at the Australian Writers Centre is creative writing for teens, and Book Boy has always been an enthusiastic writer, although less enthusiastic now that he's doing his HSC, which is a bit disappointing. But you get that in the big jobs, I think. Um, but a little while ago, I was talking to a young friend of his, 15-year-old, very enthusiastic about writing, and like many enthusiastic writers, including Book Boy, entirely stymied by the parameters of writing for school assignments. Um,
Mm.
and so I created a list for her. I created a list of books that I thought she would really love, that would open up the world of writing for her beyond school assignments, give her some craft tips in a not too serious way, and maybe just take her writing off into different areas. Now, some of these are personal recommendations, some of them are Book Boys recommendations, and some of them are recommendations from authors that I've interviewed on the podcast. Now, these are
Mhm.
books that are not necessarily aimed at teenage writers, they are books about writing that have been written, probably with an adult audience in mind. But they are books about writing that I think that teenagers who love to write will get a lot out of. So they come with that, what do you call it? Caveat that they are mostly adult books. So, like they deal with writing on an adult level. So I
Mhm.
just want to say that. Because the first one that I recommended to her, which is my favorite book about writing, hands down, and also was loved by Book Boy, who still refers to it. He read it when he was 15, and it's On Writing by Stephen King. Now, Stephen King is Stephen King. So it's written as an adult, it's an adult book. It deals with his journey towards being a writer, and it deals with his writing tips, like his tips for the craft. It's a page turning book about writing. I mean, it's just amazing.
I've heard you talk about that
If
one
you've never
before.
read it
Mm.
and you are interested in writing, I mean, if you're thinking, oh, Stephen King, he writes blockbusters, yeah, he does, and they sell really well. And my recommendation is that you have a read of this book because it will give you an understanding of why. And Book Boy adored it, and he reviewed it for his blog when he was still keeping his blog. And so I'm going to put a link to this whole list. I've got 12 of them on my list. So I won't talk about them all now, but I've got 12 of them on my list, and I will put a link in the show notes, and you can read his reviews about these books as well. So that's the first one that I wanted to specifically mention. Then the other one that I will specifically mention, actually, there's a couple of them about poetry. The first one is called The Ode Less Travelled, Unlocking the Poet Within, and it's written by Stephen Fry. Now, can you go wrong? You cannot go wrong. And
Does
I
it come in audio? Because I love listening to him on
Potentially,
audio.
I'm not exactly sure, but I bought this for Book Boy as well, and he loved it. He really likes poetry. He writes songs, so for him, it's kind of like there's something about that, lyricism in poetry that he really responds to. And again, he reviewed this one, and the link to that is also in the post that I will put in the show notes. But he found it, equal parts instructive and entertaining, which of course is what you would expect from Stephen Fry. The other thing that I bought him, because it was recommended to me as a terrific book just about creativity, is a book called Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. And it was described in a post on Medium, it's probably the best way. In 1903, Franz Capus, a 17-year-old Stuart, wrote the poet Rainer Maria Rilke, 27, asking his advice on becoming a writer. And this book is a collection of Rilke's replies over a series of
Mm.
10 letters. And in the letters, um, Rilke beautifully articulates advice on topics of creativity, dealing with criticism, inspiration, love, life, and loneliness. Now, seriously, don't you just want to go and read it?
Sounds beautiful. I
Anyway,
do.
and the other one I really wanted to mention is a book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, which is billed as the last book on screenwriting you'll ever need. And it was the first book on screenwriting I ever read, and I found it invaluable. I think it was suggested to me by the delightful Alison Rushby. I found it invaluable for writing fiction of any kind because it breaks it down to a three-act structure. It's about structure, and
Mhm.
it sort of looks at films, and it talks about how you know, the teens will find it really, really readable and incredibly valuable for learning about the structure of stories. So those are my hot tips. I've got
Mm.
12 in the post, and really, really worth a look if you have teen writers in your life in any way, shape, or form. Because the thing I always say to kids is that if you start learning the craft of writing, like writing, not HSC school writing,
Yeah.
but actual
Yeah.
writing. If you learn the craft, start learning about the craft of that when you are young, it sets you up so
Mm.
much. I wish I had started earlier. And so
Mm.
I'm saying, start early. That's what I'm saying.